morning, everyone. I'm Sudeepthi Dondapati, working as an associate professor from the Department of Placement and Training. I'm here today discussing gaining confidence and overcoming fears through speaking skills, part 3. In the previous sessions, we saw to that we covered or we understood and tried to comprehend the essence of speaking skills and the strategies and the essential traits that are needed for gaining confidence and overcoming fears or inhibitions or whatever obstacles that impede gaining confidence and overcoming fears, especially in the realm of speaking skills. So, what happens is generally in the realm of speaking skills, when we try to speak to others, especially when we are not very sure of the vocabulary and we are not sure of this grammatical competence. So this language competence will automatically lead to losing confidence. So in a way, students or learners or could be anyone who speak English will definitely lose this kind of boldness when they interact and talk to the pals or to the colleagues or to the bosses or to the managers or whoever it is. Could be in placements or it could be in any realm. So we need to be very careful when we are speaking using English language, and especially this is not our mother tongue. So if we don't have to worry about it, but then if we can easily master English language only with a little effort and good practice. So I'm here to help you with how you can really gain confidence. So why do you have to bring in this idea, gaining confidence and overcoming fears through speaking skills? So is there any interconnection and interlink between this confidence and fears? And you might perhaps ask me, Madam, what is the distinction between or what's the relevance to what you're speaking? Is it anything to do with the language you're teaching? Yes, I would say yes, indeed. There is a connection and there is an interrelation too. When you speak English, obviously you would get a kind of like a highly competent or like you feel highly competent enough to speak, and as a result what happens, you could communicate your thoughts and your process of thoughts or everything will be right, and automatically and eventually you will arrive at your destination without hesitating to without hesitating to overcome the problems or the past stumbling blocks you have in the way to reach your target or destined place. So it could be in your placements or it could be in your job professions. And where do you need it? And you don't have to worry about thinking that it is only relevant to the students who are learning English. You're wrong if you perceive this notion in these terms. But you'll be definitely benefiting from the presentation or from the concept. We can relate it to your daily conversations where you have to use English language instead of your mother tongue. And you go to a market, you don't speak in your mother tongue, but you definitely speak in this English language. So as a result, it depends. Like you speak to others, and then you speak to others, and then you have this kind of feeling that like you're very happy and you feel elated. So when it comes to speaking, so you feel confident within your heart at the same time externally too. So you feel that confidence, and definitely you also try to come up with your own innovative and creative thoughts and ideas, and that you can really contribute to the field that you are into. And if you're a student, if you're a learner, you can definitely feel confident. And even if you're not very good at speaking skills, even if you're not very good at speaking skills, even if you are not very good at writing skills, or even if you are not very good at listening skills, or even if you are not good at communication skills, altogether, definitely you can master them, you can achieve them if you can follow small steps or strategies. So, for today's discussion, I thought I would bring in this kind of basic introduction. You will have to do it in your day-to-day responsibilities, and prior to that, and especially you will be doing that, and you will have to do it, and you will be succumbed to demonstrate yourself at the very first place. So when you go to any interview, the first common question could be like, you introduce yourself. So how do you introduce? And then is there any way that you can really follow? Yes, yes. And are there any mistakes that you will have to avoid? Yes, there are common mistakes. And are there any other methods you can continue to follow? Yes, indeed. I would say that these are some careful measures, or these are some, it's like a neatly and designed and carefully thought procedures or steps or some rules and regulations. So you don't have to worry about it. But then, if you can know the basics and fundamentals of speaking whatever like you are talking, especially regarding this introduction and introducing yourself, and definitely you will never feel it, that you are looked down upon, and you don't feel, it's like, you feel that you lack confidence and all that. So because of all these reasons, these are the problems that you will have to encounter. And in reality, students or learners or speakers or so-called educated elite professionals, they do encounter and they do come across these problems. So for today's presentation, I have come up with certain content, or like certain content topics, or certain side topics that we can really understand and do it for the improvement and betterment of our communication. So the first thing is like introduction. So introduction to the concept, introduction to the topic, introduction to the idea we are discussing. And then secondly, we will be discussing introducing yourself and others. So is there a way? Yes, as I have mentioned earlier, there's a way to it. You can definitely overcome that. You can definitely come across, and you can definitely even. I sat yesterday. I went to my friend's house, and there she had to ask me to get it introduced to her friends and colleagues. So it was all unexpected, and I did not anticipate before my sight. And when she asked me to introduce myself to others, and then I was brooding over it. No, is that would happen? No, certainly not. And I was very comfortable in introducing. And so these are social skills you need to acquire. And if you do not have the social skills, you would feel that you're lost. So definitely you don't feel confident. And so you might think this is you cannot take it with a pinch of salt. So that is the reason you have to spend some time to learn and acquire the phrases and the language structures that are needed and important for introducing yourselves, at the same time introducing others. So that would be my second point. And the third point is like useful vocabulary. So what is this useful vocabulary? And you can use certain set of words and phrases and very beautiful expressions. And English language has very beautiful expressions, and you can indeed express yourself and yourselves also, like if you can understand the vocabulary and know how to use them. And if you imbibe those structures, definitely you can come up with beautiful language, and you can completely share and communicate your ideas. So useful vocabulary is mandatory, I would say, and it is not compulsion though. But do you know, the absence of useful vocabulary would definitely lead to miscommunication. But you might ask me, Madam, even vegetable vendors or businessmen or salespeople or salesperson could be anyone. Are they not managing without useful vocabulary? Yes, they are managing, but I would say that it is not 100%. It would be 100% if they can make you understand what are their thoughts and what are their perceptions and what are their ideas in the relevant field. So you don't have to worry about communicating your product. You want to talk about your product in the market, and if you know this vocabulary or the word or a phrase or any structure that is apt and suitable, and definitely you can achieve your target. That means, like, by the end of your marketing or your production or your presentation or whatever information you want to share, definitely you'll be able to convince them. And not only that, you persuade them, but also you make them get convicted of the talk that you are giving. And once they are persuaded and when they're convicted, and finally you are making them decided about the product or about your target ambition or your goal or your objective. So when you convince them about the objective that you have in your mind, and obviously you have achieved your target or respective, it's like, the deadline that whatever you have. So that itself is a great accomplishment. So once again, I want to reiterate and say to that, it is very important to have useful vocabulary in your language structures, or in the language that you are speaking, especially in the English language. And the fourth point I want to bring to your notice is that comparing and contrasting people. So where do you need that? When interview rounds happen, especially for engineering students and for technical students or whoever are there. So if they are into any technical field, if they are into technical round, they would definitely be selected on the basis of what? On the basis of these what descriptions and comparing and contrasting people. So this is just a language task needed for you to compare and contrast two different objects, two different people, two different animals, two different concepts, two different ideas, two different pictures, two different several ideas and whatnot. So anything where you need contrasting and comparing everywhere. You work in an apartment, you work in a college, and there, if you have to compare the importance of one concept or one building or one organization, or you will have to use compare and contrasting words and measurements, especially language structures, if you have to select one of the best. So there requires this comparison and comparing and contrast. So that these two are something that like you cannot imagine to get rid of. So wherever you work, so wherever you do, whatever you do, definitely you will have to compare and contrast people. And then the last thing, the point I have here for you to understand is like evaluation criteria. So the evaluation criteria, so is it related to the performance of the learner or of the students who are competing there? Yes, the evaluation criteria is about their performance and who does it and on what basis will this happen. And if so, there is an evaluation criteria like this. What are some important and what are some useful range of structures, or what are the criteria that they would really take into consideration? So you will have to understand it. So you will try to learn introducing yourself, introducing others. At the same time, you will learn vocabulary. Also, in addition to using vocabulary, you would also compare and contrast. And so let me begin my first slide talking about introduction, self-introduction. So you would have perhaps listened to many videos where the introduction or self-introduction has been taught. Yes, it's good, but let me take you through different phrases or different ways of introducing yourself and others also. So, do you think introducing yourself is necessary? Yes, it is necessary because it's an essential function in interpersonal communication. So, why is it so efficient, and why is it so essential function in interpersonal communication? It's because if the party that that you're in contact with, if they do not know you, or if you do not know each other, then ultimately addressing them and then talking to them and sharing their ideas would be very difficult. So for that reason, you will have to sit with them and work them for some time, for so long hours. So in that condition, what would you do? So you have to you have to build up a kind of rapport between both the parties. So you will have a sort of kind of interaction and nice communication, and you will be talking to each other, and thereby you can share your other views or opinions or ideas, whatever you have that for that particular work or project or for that responsibility. So it all to be started, it should be started with again self-introduction. So that is why it is prioritized and it is shown a significant essential function in interpersonal communication. So that is the point that I want to say in the first place. And secondly, at an interview, where do you do this self-introduction? Could be at an interview in office as a new recruit, and also anywhere and everywhere. Even if you if you're commuting to some nearby place and you commute for about 5 to 10 minutes, and then you have to sit and introduce to yourself to others, and then hello, how are you? So you will have to have a kind of definitely you will have an informal way of conversation, and if this has to be happen on the basis of formal conversation in a formal setting, in a realistic, in a professional context, then how is that you will have to follow? How is that you need to do it? How is that you converse with them by introducing yourself? So for that reason, it is considered very essential. And the place of this thing to happen, the place of this introduction to happen, self-introduction or introducing others, will definitely happen at any place. And especially, I'm trying to focus on this aspect that this will happen everywhere. And now my focus is to educate and ignite the students and the learners who are preparing for any kind of placement or for any job or interviews. So as an e-recruit, if you are able to if you're able to project your ideas, if you're able to communicate with them, definitely in the first place, you should be able to know how to introduce yourself. Okay. And next, one of the best first steps to effective communication is to be able to introduce confidently, at the same time efficiently also. So is it not enough if you only communicate but not with confidence? Yes, it is important, and you cannot do away with the idea of communicating with introducing yourself with confidence. So yes, why do you need that? You need that confidence when you introduce yourself, because that is the first picture and that is the first impression that you are going to create on the minds of the listeners. So you create this kind of impression when you introduce yourself, and that's where you can mar or you can make an impression. So you can create an impression and you can spoil your image. You can make them understand about you, or you can make them misunderstand about you. So you can make them know you, or you can make them completely a kind of blur picture about you. So and it all depends on how you introduce yourself. So this will be the first and foremost impression that will be created in the minds of the listeners. So when you are in contact with them for any professional, for any formal and informal reasons. So that is why it is the first steps to effective communication, and it is to be able to introduce confidently. Right. So the next point, and that for this slide we have is this kind of cover letter also, it begins with a self introduction. So when you write and when you apply for jobs, so you will have to write a kind of self introduction. So how effective you write and how good you perform, how good you come up with a paragraph that will reveal about yourselves. So that is the first picture that you are going to make a very sweet and good impression on the minds of the listeners or the readers who are reading your cover letter. So that's also one of the reasons you will have to learn introducing yourself and others. Right. So when you say, I am Varun Padya and I work in IC Bank as a customer executive. So I am Varun Padya. So when I say that, when I'm introducing myself, right? So we begin with saying that I am. So who am I? I am so and so. I am. You don't say that you're a doctor when you are introducing about yourself. So you say I am so and so. So I'm Naresh from Chennai, or I work as a content writer. So you come up with your name and succeeded by the place from where you hail. And then you talk about a profession. So the 3 bullet points that you will have to, or the 3 ideas or the 3 things that come on the list is like, 1 is your name, and secondly, you will have to mention your place, and then you will have to talk about your profession. And then please do not cook up unnatural and unrealistic stories and then come up with a very fabricated kind of version of your presentation or your introduction, wherein you will make a very bad impression about yourselves on the very first instance. So at the very first sight, you will build up a very negative and bad impression on the minds of the listeners when you do not have all these ideas or all these points in your introduction. So continuing with that, so we say that my name is Manisha Sundar. Also you can say, oh, in addition to I am so and so, you can also say my name is Manisha Sundar. I'm freelance journalist. So just a random profession that I've put up here, but then you can say my name is so and so, right? So I am, also you can say my name is. And now some questions to raise in your mind. So what are they? So you have to think about, where are you from? And then what do you most like about the place where you live? And what kind of outdoor activities do you most enjoy? And what sports are most popular with people in your country? And which sports do you enjoy playing and watching? So these are a few questions you will have to start thinking about before thinking about yourself, before you introduce yourself. And so when you think about it, the first thing that should come to your mind is that, like, where are you from? You're from this place. And in some informal conversations, you don't need to talk about your hobbies, your interests, your aims and ambitions. You don't have to go further. But at times, in your placements or in your professional setups, you will have to talk about additional and all other significant details when you are talking about or when you are introducing yourself. But in so many informal contexts, you don't have to talk about your interests, your worries, and all that. So you can structure it very carefully to talk about all that. So importantly, you will have to think about, where are you from? What do you most like about the place where you live? You can also say that this is the place I live, and the interesting part of this place is, or the very popular or the most popular aspect that you really enjoy or the tourists enjoy in this place, or anything that is very famous and popular. You can definitely talk about. And thirdly, you'll be talking about what kind of outdoor activities do you most enjoy. So you can list them one or two, not a big list, but one or two. And next, you can also talk about what sports are most popular with people in the country. So you can also talk about, so you go to any foreign setup. So they talk about all these things. They don't talk about the political news or any kind of other stuff, very irrelevant and kind of very out of context subjects, which are very personal and which are very favorite subjects to a very few people. So they do not touch personalized subjects, but indeed they talk about general and useful and something that really others can make use of when they visit that country. So that is why selectively you will have to talk about the significance of the place and popular sports. What are some popular major sports, most popular sports with people in your country, and then which sports do you enjoy playing, so and also watching. So this will give a sort of impression about your mind and your time. So what will we do, what are your chief interests, and it will kind of picturize your mentality and your occupation of all these things. So when you say that you watch all this, then they will understand your psyche, your mindset, and your academic excellence also. Sometimes unnoticingly, when we say that, it's all about. So when you talk about all these things, so you might ask me, madam, how could they benefit, or how could they make out that we are very intelligent people, or this is how we can make use of the time? I would say that definitely your interest and your activities will definitely make them understand the person who is interested in that particular field, and who is willing to share he's willing to share his knowledge in that particular activity, is something that they will get an idea about you. So they will think that he's a serious workaholic person, or is diligent reader, or a diligent person who always work hard to come up with new colors, or have a bright future. So definitely you can talk about all these things without wasting much time. Instead of talking about your cock and bull stories, which are very irrelevant, you can avoid, and then you can come up with that. And now, after said so, the questions that you need to raise, I have also something important to say. The things which you should not be doing it. So the things which you should not do, and the things that are unimportant and that definitely you will have to avoid. So they are: point number one, do not introduce yourself as I am Mr. Vinod Shah or Dr. Rajni Ghosh. Or you should not say I'm Dr. Sudeepthi. You have to say I am Sudeepthi. So, but the others who are with you, they can introduce as that, like, she is Dr. Sudeepthi. But I cannot introduce myself as I am Doctor, or I am Miss, or I am Mr., or I am Mrs. So these are to be avoided. You can say I am, and what's your name? I am so and so. Right? So the Miss, Mr., or Doctor, or Mrs., or Miss are used when we refer to others. So when we refer to others, definitely we will be doing it. Next, we do not use them while referring to ourselves. While referring to ourselves, we do not use them. Instead, we avoid them. Next, do not say always myself, I'm Sudeepthi. Myself, I'm Raju. Myself, I'm Balan. You have to say I am Balan, I am Sudeepthi, but I myself or myself Sudeepthi is wrong. And also do not say I am working in. I work in. Say I work in. You can use simple present tense because it is a habitual and everyday ongoing action. where you can use present tense, avoiding continuous tense. So you don't have to say I am working here. Next, so now if you participate in those campus placements, and now they might ask you to say get into 5 groups, or get into a group of 5 and introduce yourself to each other, or introduce yourselves to each other. So when you are in the groups, you will be asked to definitely focus on these activities, and they will ask you to perform all these things. So you have to be mentally prepared and mentally ready to participate in all the activities. So for that reason, we do give coaching and practice in the classrooms that we are teaching, or that we have for better placements in companies. So you have to, some students who are very shy, some students who are very introverts, they are not willing to participate. But I would say these are some original contexts or situations or samples or clips that I have taken for the betterment of the students, because of the students you are working with, or in respective professions, or respective colleges, respective training centers, where you have to work with them for achieving or for making them get success in placements. So you have to understand that these are some possible questions and some possible activities that you will have to do it. And then you also try to say, they will also say, what do you say when there is nobody around? So what do you say when there is nobody around and we find ourselves face to face with a stranger? So what do you say when there is nobody around and we find ourselves face to face with a stranger? See the question, try to understand. When we meet a stranger, so what do you say when there is nobody around? When there is nobody around you are familiar with, and we find ourselves face to face with a stranger, that means we are not acquainted with these people. We are never associated. But indeed, it's like we are trying to speak to them for the first time. So what do you do? Is there any pattern? Yes. Is there a way to do it? So you can use some nice expressions like, I don't think we've met before. I am Mahasimha. I don't think we've met before. I am Sudeepthi. So you can say, so you can use this kind of expression. Preeta Saha. Okay, so Preetam Saha, glad to meet you. Also, you can first say their name and you can later on say that, glad to meet you. Or you can say, I don't think we've met before. I am so and so. Sudhir Shetty, how do you do? So with a handshake, you can give a handshake and you can introduce yourself to them, especially with unknown strangers. So you can make use of all this. And so what are some words you can use? So when you are describing or when you are introducing yourself in your placements and before the unknown people you are in or the company you're with, and especially when you are appearing for the competitive exams and where you have to introduce yourselves, there you can say you're an extrovert, you're an introvert. Okay, you know the meaning of it, like somebody who is not very open and not very comfortable with sharing. And then somebody who is not an extrovert, somebody who is not an extrovert is an introvert, and somebody who is an extrovert is like freely can share all those things. Okay, and then down to earth person, you can also say he's a down to, when you're introducing others. Okay, and you can also say I'm an optimist. Okay, somebody who avails every possible opportunities for his success. And you can also say I'm a gregarious person. So that means somebody who is very sociable. Some nice vocabulary you can use. And you can also say, I'm painfully shy person, or she's painfully shy person. So painfully shy in the sense, it's like you are not very comfortable and you are kind of introvert, or you are not very sociable. And also you can say she's a reserved person, or bend over backward, somebody who takes risks, okay, even at the cost of things. So bend over backwards, even without much profit. Okay, also you can use some words like self-effacing person. Also, you can use like two-faced, thick-skinned, fair-minded. So you can use thick-skinned person is somebody who is able to tolerate any odds of life. So you stand any odds and storms of your life. So you stand there and then you face a number of challenges where you will have to go through some painful situations and insults. But still, then we say he's a thick-skinned person. And so that means he is able to tolerate and he's able to undergo this kind of pressure without becoming too sensitive to break down. So you can say he's a fair-minded person and he's a two-faced person. Okay, so these are words: two-faced person, double-minded person. And also some other words like gourmet. You can say like like gourmet is somebody who takes food habits very seriously. So it's like somebody who relishes eating. Okay, he's a versatile person. Somebody is very good at so many other things. So in multidimensional. So you can say he's a versatile and he's a philanthropist, somebody who loves humankind and who is very sensitive and kind of sensitive person, kind of very adventurous person. Okay, very adventurous person. Also somebody who is kind of foxy and catty. These are a bit informal. You might, okay, and in informal context you can use this foxy and catty, but then like in a semi-formal situation you can definitely use of these two words like catty and foxy. Somebody who are very cunning, okay, somebody who is very cunning. You can make use of saying that like somebody who is very foxy and catty, cunning and very strategic, and they are not very straightforward, and they devise plans and strategy inside their heart. So you can refer to them by using these words. So you can use all these words, right? Okay. Now we will move on to other kind of tasks. That's where they will show you some pictures. Could be pictures, or even if they do not show you the pictures, if they ask you to compare and contrast. So the idea here that is focused in my concept is like when you have to do comparison and contrast. So how do you do that? So see, you can see there are different people there, and the lady who is sitting, they're looking very anxious, and the lady who is standing, okay, and she's looking some other side, and there are some gentlemen who are doing different things there. Like one is reading newspaper and the other is very busy in buying some ticket, or could be anything, inquiring the information. So these are different people there, and if you have to show comparison and contrast, how do you do? So I want you to talk about the photographs. So there are some photographs here, and they show some people waiting for something. So I would like you to compare, if there's a question like this, you to compare and contrast two of the photographs. Okay, and say what you think that people are waiting for and how they may be feeling. So you can use, so the question here is, which of these people do you think looks most impatient? So go back to the picture, and who do you think looks more impatient? So do you think the lady sitting there is looking impatient or patient, or think over? So you have to compare and contrast. So the words you can use, some contrasting words you can use, like in contrast to the man standing there. So you can use the words like phrases like in contrast, conversely, at the other end of the spectrum, at the other extreme, or in sharp contrast to this person, or dissimilarly, a clear difference. See, you can use all these words for explaining contrast words and comparing words. So comparison, when you make comparison, you can use these words, and when you make contrast, you can say in contrast with. So in contrast, it's not the same, so opposite of that. And conversely, that means in the reverse way, on the other side, at the other end of the spectrum, so that means from the other perspective, at the other extreme, or in sharp contrast in the opposite direction, or in dissimilar way. So a clear difference. These are some ways. These are some contrasting words. These are a few words you can use, and these are not only the words you can use. Next, comparison words. So comparison words. So what are the words you can use? So in the same way, similarly, in like manner, that means in similar fashion, no one, absolutely no one, could have finished a goal in like manner. See, for instance, you can say in like manner. How do you use? No one, absolutely no one, could have finished a goal in a like manner. That means in the similar way or in the similar fashion. Okay, likewise is another comparison word you can use. Similarly, and by the same token. The same token, that means in the same way and the similar fashion, you can use all these words, comparison words. And I don't think that prices will go, but by the same token, I don't see them going down either. By the same token, in the sense, in the same way. So these are some words or phrases you can make use of when you are using these comparison and contrast pictures or where you have the word. And some more comparing and contrasting words you can say, however, nonetheless, still, even, so, yet, and though. So yet the person is like that. So because of that, though, however, nonetheless, still. So these are the words you can say. And also nevertheless, nonetheless mean the same. In spite of that. So I did not, for instance, I would say, I didn't like the look of him at all. But nevertheless, I decided to undertake the case. But then, even though I don't like the person, but still I decide to do it. So on the other hand, and on the other hand, so on one hand it is like this, on the other hand it is like that. So you can use all these phrases when you are comparing on the same token at the same time. While she's speaking to me, the person is coming. While this girl has very good grades, this person, other person in my college doesn't secure any of them. So when you are comparing and contrasting, you can use all these contrasting devices. And also you can think about some concluding words. So what are some concluding when you are when you compare, when you've already taken up the task comparison and contrasting, you can also think about all the words and phrases to use, like all things considered. All things considered. To summarize. So all things considered, I would say. So you are in a kind of conclusion. You wrap up the discussion. So you can say to summarize my whole argument or to summarize my point. Next, in short, I want to say, or to sum up my discussion, or all in all. So you can use all these words. And there are some other pictures tasks for you. So you can see ladies, they're playing with their pets, okay, and with different emotions and with different expressions on their faces, right? You see one lady crying over the baby, and you see one lady feeding the pet, and you see a couple, sharing food and enjoying as they talk to their pets. So the photographs show people with animals, and if a question like this, I want you to compare and contrast two of the photographs and say what you think the relationship between the people and the animals. So you can use the same words, contrasting and comparison words. Like, who do you think has the closest connection, to that particular animal, right? So useful vocabulary you can make use are like VP, like she looks VP, that means like almost about to weep, or she looks weeping, or affectionate person, somebody who is very loving and affectionate, and she looks tearful, somebody who is in tears or mournful or gloomy, grieving, bleak. So you can think about all the words like that. Okay, so you can use. So now, final point is that, like, what is a thing that we have to consider after we perform? So assessment or evaluation criteria is something very important. So the criteria to consider is like cohesion and coherence. Just like in the previous session in my video, I told you these are very important and very integral part of evaluation and assessment. So when you talk about cohesion and logical connection, interconnectivity, and they should go together. So cohesion and coherence, logical connection, and they should knit together in your presentation or in your talk. So that's very important. And then content is also marked, and your performance is also marked on the basis of your content. And then also interactive communication, how interactive you are. And sometimes some placements, they don't want you to be interactive, but they just want you to be communicative. You will have to communicate, but not interact. But in your group discussions, when they are conducting group discussions and when they invite others to speak to you, so where you will look for this kind of interactive communication. Also, grammatical accuracy is also very important. Grammatical accuracy should be there because they will count for your errors or inaccurate sentences or accurate sentences. So even the score range increases if your grammatical accuracy is up to the mark, is there. And then lexical accuracy is also very important. The kind of words you use, lexical range is also very important. And the correctness, appropriateness, and the range of vocabulary you use, and also your pronunciation. So cohesion and coherence, content, interactive communication, grammatical accuracy, grammatical range, lexical accuracy, lexical range, and pronunciation. All these are part of criteria. So you can think about other tasks like where you will have to talk about this, like traveling, creating jobs. So in my other session, so I will come up with the continuous follow-up discussion and topic. So for today, try to learn and try to comprehend all these points that we have discussed in the discussion. Thank you.
Like, share and subscribe. Hit the bell icon for more updates.